Flat number 2 at the nurses' home of Grootfontein State Hospital was a small, quiet, and for a few days in September 2007, a sealed chamber of horror. Inside, a husband and a wife, both Kenyan nationals, lived their last moments together. Between the 14th and the 17th of September 2007, the husband who worked as a nurse stabbed his wife in the chest and slit her throat. But death was not the end. He took a sharp object and proceeded to dismember her body, 10 parts in all, each one dismembered from the torso. After chopping the body in pieces, he did something even more disturbing. He pushed a pair of panties and a face towel into her vagina and another face cloth into the stab wound in her chest. Piece by piece, he carried her away from the flat, dumping each part in different corners of Grootfontein. Then, he returned to clean the apartment to erase the traces. At least, he thought he did. This is the story of one of Namibia's most gruesome domestic murders, a killing so brutal that at first, police feared it could be the work of the notorious serial killer, the B1 butcher. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that this was no serial killer's doing. It was something far more intimate and far more chilling. Welcome to Buried Voices, where we uncover true crime and mystery stories from Kenya and beyond. In each episode, we deliver balanced and factual narratives while honoring the dignity of victims and respecting their loved ones. Please note, this story is based on publicly available reports, media coverage, and forensic findings. The investigation in this case is closed and the accused is currently serving a 40-year prison sentence. Our goal is to present the facts as reported and to honor the memory of the victim while respecting all parties involved. If you find value in these stories, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a case. Kenneth Orina was born around 1973, and from an early age, he had a passion for helping others, a passion that drew him into nursing. He trained in Kenya, and by the time he left home for Namibia in 2006, he was already a qualified nurse. When Orina arrived in Namibia, the Ministry of Health and Social Services placed him at Grootfontein State Hospital, where he was working in the operating theatre. He was coordinating procedures, assisting surgeons, and keeping the heart of the hospital's surgeries wing running smoothly. Rose Chepkemoi Kiplangat was born on 27 October 1974 to Joel Kiplangat Biondo and Neema Kiplangat. Like Kenneth, Rose was drawn to a life of care. She too trained as a nurse, a profession that called for compassion, patience, and precision, qualities that came naturally to her. Somewhere along the way, Rose and Orina's path crossed. They began a romantic relationship, and though they never formalized it legally, they lived as husband and wife under the customs of Orina's culture, two nurses building a life together. When Orina moved to Grootfontein in 2006, Rose followed later that year. She applied for a position with the Ministry of Health and was accepted, but she still had not officially started work. They settled into flat number 2 at the nurses' home, a modest apartment on the hospital grounds surrounded by a tight-knit community of medical staffs. Far from Kenya, they shared their language, their food, their jokes, and their future plans in this small corner of Namibia they now called home. When Rose first joined Orina in Grootfontein, it looked like the perfect start. Two qualified health workers, a young couple in love, sharing a flat, building a life together in a new country. This is what many people saw from the outside, but behind the walls of flat number 2, the picture was far less perfect. According to a Kenyan colleague who was once a close friend to Orina, the relationship was strained and it had started showing signs of a breakup. She told investigators that even though she and Orina had been friends, Rose accused her of trying to seduce Orina. This accusation shattered their friendship and hinted at a deeper level of mistrust inside the home. On 9th July of 2007, things spilled into the open. That day, Orina walked into the local police station to file a complaint against Rose. He accused Rose of being violent towards him and asked police to detain her until he could arrange her return to Kenya. Almost at the same time, Rose arrived at the station, barefoot, dirty, and disoriented. She told police that she wanted to lay charges against Orina. A complaint was filed and the matter was scheduled for a hearing before the local magistrate the next day, but according to Orina, the case was removed from the roll. Later in court, Orina denied ever asking the police to detain Rose, and instead, he claimed that he was trying to report Rose missing and he feared that she might commit suicide, saying that Rose was suffering from depression. Another witness, who was a senior colleague of Orina at Grootfontein State Hospital, recalled phone calls between June and July of 2007. In one call, Orina said that Rose had gone berserk, breaking furniture, and that he wanted her to return to Kenya. On the stand, Orina could not recall mentioning broken furniture, and he denied saying that he wanted Rose sent home. The colleague also remembered a later call towards the end of July when Orina said that they had reconciled and there was no need for Rose to leave. Piece by piece, this account painted a clear picture, a picture of frequent arguments and domestic violence. On the morning of 17th September 2007, Grootfontein municipal workers were going around their usual duties. As they passed by near the hospital grounds, just behind the mortuary gate, they spotted 3 black trash bags. At first, they thought nothing of it, but curiosity got the better of them. When they opened the first bag, they all froze. Inside was a human head. The second bag held 2 forearms, and the third bag contained a bra, a seat cover, and 2 pairs of latex gloves similar to those worn by medical staffs. This was the beginning of a nightmare. 5 days later, that is on 22nd September of 2007, a group of school children walking along the road to Grootfontein noticed a strong foul smell. They found a black bag lying in the bush and they told the police. When officers opened it, they found 2 lower legs and 2 upper arms, all wrapped in a grey and white striped blanket. 3 days later, that is 25th September of 2007, the horror deepened. Residents of Grootfontein led police to a dumping site where a dog was seen earlier eating what appeared to be a human leg. On the ground laid a partly eaten thigh, and nearby, inside another black bag, was the other thigh. A search of the area uncovered the most chilling find of all: a human torso wrapped in a grey blanket and stuffed into a plastic bag lying about 500 meters away. At that time, Namibia was already living in fear of the B1 butcher, an identified serial killer who had been targeting women since 2005. His victims were often found dismembered and their remains dumped along the B1 highway. Even in 2007, parts of his victims were still being discovered. So, when the body parts started turning up around Grootfontein, many believed that the butcher had struck again. But soon, investigators realized that this was not the work of the serial killer. This was something else, something closer to home. All forensic evidence that were collected, which include the body parts, the seat cover, towels, bra, gloves, blood-stained t-shirt, and 13 black trash bags, were all taken to the National Forensic Science Institute of Namibia. There, 2 things happened. 1, a post-mortem examination to document every injury, and secondly, a forensic testing to find out who these body parts belonged to. Dr. Shangula's report read like something from a nightmare. The body was in 10 separate pieces, which included the head, 2 upper arms, 2 lower arms with hands, 2 thighs, 2 lower legs, and a torso. The throat had been slit, and there was an incision wound in the back on the left side. There was another deep cut in the buttock and even a perforation in the lower lobe of the left lung. The cause of death was reported as an incision wound to the throat. Everything else, which included the dismemberment and decomposition of the body, happened after she was already dead. But there was something else, something that made even the experienced investigators pause. A pair of panties and a face cloth had been forced into the vagina. Another face cloth had been stuffed deep into the gaping chest cavity where her torso had been cut open. It wasn't just an attempt to dispose of a body. It was an act meant to degrade. When Dr. Ludik was also examining the remains, he noticed that the cuts were not clumsy. They were clean and deliberate, showing the work of someone who knew exactly where to cut and exactly how the human body fits together. Whoever did this understood human anatomy. DNA testing tied every single part to the same person, one woman, but her name was still a mystery. While the forensic team was busy with their tests, detectives in Grootfontein were doing their own legwork. They spoke to residents, co-workers, friends, anyone who might know something. They also went through missing person reports, hoping to match the remains to someone reported gone. One name kept coming up: Rose. In early September of 2007, tension was still heavy between Rose and her husband Orina. Catherine Bonaya, a close friend and a colleague to Orina, remembered their last meeting clearly. On the 8th of September 2007, Rose and Orina came to her home, hoping to reconcile after a period of uneasiness. That uneasiness, Catherine recalled, had begun when Rose accused her of trying to seduce Orina. 2 days later, Catherine spoke to Rose on the phone, not knowing it will be one of her final conversations. On 14th of September, Catherine received a text message from Orina's phone saying that Rose will not be attending a funeral they had planned to go together. According to bank official Mario Barry, the last time Rose was seen in public was on 13 September when she and Orina visited a bank in Grootfontein to sign a loan agreement. Orina, however, claimed that he last saw her on 15th September 2007. As the month went on, Orina applied for compassionate leave, saying that his mother in Kenya was ill. Before leaving on 24th September, he told Catherine that Rose had gone to Windhoek to visit a friend. That same day, while traveling, he told another colleague, Justin Mumanyi, that Rose had stayed behind to wait for her letter of appointment and she was doing well. When Orina arrived in Kenya, he visited Rose's parents with his father and uncle. Rose's mother, Chepkemoi Kiplangat, remembered them saying that the couple had been having problems in Namibia, a claim that Orina later denied. When she asked why Rose had not traveled with Orina, Orina gave different answers each time. First, Orina said that Rose refused to come. When asked again, he said that they could not afford 2 tickets, and in another encounter, she said that Rose had gone elsewhere. Days later, Rose's mother, Mrs. Chepkemoi Kiplangat, called her daughter's number. To her surprise, Orina answered, even though he had earlier said that Rose had a new phone number. Orina told her that Rose was at a seminar. The next time Rose's mother called, Orina said that Rose had traveled. A third call went unanswered. After that, every call that she made rang without response. For Rose's mother, the last real conversation she had with her daughter was weeks earlier, sometime in September of 2007. On 30th of October 2007, more than 6 weeks after the first gruesome discovery of body parts around Grootfontein, police arrested Kenneth Orina, Rose's husband. When brought in, he gave a statement to Magistrate Nicolaides, and in that statement, he admitted that he felt bad for what had happened. When asked why he did not report the incident earlier, he said that he couldn't report the incident because his mind was not free. He described what he claimed took place on 14th of September 2007 in their flat at the nurse's home. According to Orina, that day they had a fight and during which Rose uttered bitter words and unusual questions to him while saying that Orina will die that day. Despite all his attempts to calm her down and his pleading with her, she continued acting strangely while throwing documents and household items out of their flat. Orina took Rose's threats seriously and begged her to let him live, but when she started looking for a knife, he ran to the bedroom to find a spare key to the flat, as Rose had locked him in. Rose followed Orina into the bedroom, carrying a knife, and when Orina tried to wrestle it away from her, she was accidentally cut on the neck. Despite her bleeding and being fatally injured, she continued saying that she had to kill Orina that day. He was overwhelmed by what he had done to Rose and begged her for forgiveness. Her condition deteriorated to the point that she died while he sat with her, holding her for some hours. He realized that he had killed her innocently and did not know what to do. He went up to the police twice, but courage failed him every time he got to the station. He returned home and held the body until morning, not knowing what to do. He later, that same morning, attended a funeral, and upon his return from the funeral, he did not know how he would manage to carry the body to the mortuary, and it was at this point that he decided to cut Rose into pieces. On his way to the mortuary, he realized that he could not manage and decided to leave it at the mortuary gate, and the rest of the body he took to different places in the nearest field where he dumped it. On 1st November of 2007, a day after Orina was arrested, the forensic team searched his flat at the nurse's home, hoping to find traces of human blood. Surprisingly, they found nothing. The real breakthrough came from the evidence already collected. First, investigators focused on identifying the victim. They sent a set of fingerprints taken from the remains to Interpol office in Kenya. The next day, they had an answer. The prints matched Rose Chepkemoi Kiplangat, a Kenyan national. Her name and date of birth were confirmed. DNA testing also backed this up. Samples from all the recovered body parts confirmed that they belonged to the same person, a woman. Blood samples from Rose's parents, Joel and Neema, proved the genetic match. The profile were consistent with a mother-father-child relationship. Then came the evidence tying Orina directly to the killing. At one of the dump sites, police had recovered latex gloves and black trash bags. Forensic testing found Orina's DNA inside the gloves, and even more damning, a fingerprint lifted from the trash bag matched the print of Orina's left ring finger. The evidence left little doubt. The remains were Rose's, and the man who dumped them was her husband. From the moment Rose Chepkemoi Kiplangat vanished, Kenneth Orina's version of events shifted like sand in the wind. On 14th of September 2007, Rose's friend Catherine received a text message from Orina's phone saying that Rose would not be able to attend a funeral that they had planned to go together. Investigators would later believe that Rose was already dead when that message was sent. When Orina was asked by Rose's mother why her daughter had not traveled with him to Kenya, Orina's answers changed each time. He even told her that Rose had a new phone number, yet when her mother dialed the old one, Orina was the one who answered. Friends also got their own mix of stories. To Catherine, Rose had gone to visit a friend. To another colleague, Justin, he claimed that Rose stayed behind to wait for her job appointment later. Then there was the matter of Agnes, a mysterious friend Orina said Rose sometimes stayed with for weeks at a time. Orina could not provide a surname, an address, or even a phone number for this woman, and also the police never found her. When it came to explaining Rose's death, Orina's account was as implausible as it was disturbing. An accidental cut to the throat during a struggle over a knife, hours of sitting beside her lifeless body, and then the decision to cut her into pieces and scatter the pieces around Grootfontein. Even his behavior after her disappearance raised questions. In July of 2007, Orina reported Rose missing, and he also said that Rose was suicidal. But in September, when Rose supposedly left again and never came back, he made no such report. And then there was the forensic evidence, a hard physical proof that told its own story. His fingerprint was found on a plastic bag containing Rose's remains, and his DNA was discovered inside latex gloves recovered from the scene. Orina brushed it off, saying that the bag was found in his work environment, but investigators saw it differently. The trial of Kenneth Orina would become one of Namibia's most talked about domestic murder cases. In court, the state painted a picture of calculated brutality. They argued that this was no accident, as Orina claimed. The evidence, which included the clean and deliberate cuts, the degrading insertion of items into Rose's body, and the scattering of her remains across Grootfontein, all pointed to intent. Prosecutors stressed the inconsistency in his story, his shifting explanations, and the fact that he never reported her missing. They reminded the court of the forensic proof, which included his fingerprints on a plastic bag containing Rose's remains and his DNA inside latex gloves that were found at one of the dumping sites. The defense stuck to Orina's version that Rose had come at him with a knife, that her death was a tragic result of an accident, and that he had panicked afterward, but the judge was not convinced. In May of 2011, the High Court in Namibia found Kenneth Orina guilty of murder and attempting to defeat the cause of justice. The murder conviction alone carried a sentence of 30 years. For the dismemberment and disposal of Rose's body, he was given an additional 10 years, a total of 40 years in prison. As the sentence was being read, there was no public display of emotions from Orina, but Rose's family, hundreds of miles away in Kenya, the verdict was a bittersweet moment. Justice had been served, but it could not bring her back. Rose Chepkemoi Kiplangat's life ended in an act of violence so cruel it shook the quiet town of Grootfontein and left a wound that time will never fully heal. She was more than the headlines and more than the court files, caring for others. Kenneth Orina was sentenced to 40 years in prison for the brutal murder of Rose Chepkemoi Kiplangat. But here's the question that I want to leave with you. Do you believe that 40 years was enough sentence for a crime like this? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section.
Ladies, if you're in an abusive relationship, leave now. It's not worth it.
If you found this story powerful, remember to like, share, and subscribe for more true Kenyan crime stories. Let us keep bringing light to the untold. The question for this episode is, do you think that 40 years was enough for a crime like this? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section. And until next time, stay informed, stay aware, and stay safe.